host Locke, and this is the podcast where we drink, smoke, and bullshit about the life of a historic criminal. Now we're talking outlaws and gangsters. We're not going to cover too many serial killers. That's just a little bit dark for me, and this ain't no true crime podcast. Honestly, you can't call this a history podcast because I'm no historian. I'm just a history fan that does some research and bullshits about it with his friends. So speaking of my friends, let me introduce you to my co-host. First with us today, we got DC.
What up, doe?
And also with us today, we got Cancer.
What up? What's going on?
Welcome to the show, guys.
Glad to be back.
Welcome.
DC, you said you never tried that before. What exactly are you drinking?
Exactly. So this is a Arbor Brewing Company. I believe they're out of Ann Arbor here. I believe so. But this is a strawberry blonde, 6.8 gravity. It's pretty good. I don't know how to explain it. It tastes a little strawberry-ish, but it's not a fruity beer. It's kind of like just like a drop. And it's hard to say what it doesn't quite taste like a blonde, but
Okay.
it does. Like, it's hard to explain, but it's pretty good. I like it. Of course, I cheated and I drank one before the podcast started. But so far, I like it. Pretty good. I bought a short 6-pack, which usually, I like to buy everything that's in a tall. But I think I've run the gambit on most beers that I can find in a tall.
Okay.
That I haven't had on this podcast already. So, got to go to shorts now.
Cancer, you always bring your A game when it comes to beers. You and Tank's the local resident beer aficionados. So, what'd you bring to drink?
Well, I didn't know I was cheating, so I already had 5 of these. But this is Blackberry Cobbler. It's a Belgian white ale from Hardywood Park Craft Brewery in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
It looks like that style looks the same as the same company that does the M43 and the Boss Tweed. Their setup, they use
Old
the
Nations?
same Old Nations. If
Yeah.
you look at that, it's like bear can with like a black and white label on it.
Oh, yeah.
That Old Nations that you brought up,
Mhm.
my cousin texted me earlier. He texted me a picture that he seen on Facebook. The store around here had a limited release of Old Nations Brewery, a M43 strawberry.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I've never had a strawberry one. I might have to go grab one of those. I went up to my local corner store, came back home. By the time I was home, he had texted me again. Their Facebook, same Facebook, but with a red X through it, said sold out.
Oh,
believe
yeah.
it.
They
I recommend,
literally sold out in like
I
20
recommend going to the brewery. The actual brewery is great. I've been there a few times. Like,
Yeah.
The M43 is great, but they have a lot of variety that you don't really see in the stores.
Oh, I'm sure, because all I really know is the M43, the Boss Tweed.
Yeah.
And Tank told us about another one that was coming out limited release, but so far, Boss Tweed, ever since Tank introduced me to it, it's literally my favorite beer now.
It's a good
That
beer.
thing is delicious, and I think it's because it's not one flavor like all the rest of the beers. Like,
Right.
I don't know what it is about that beer, but like it literally has like 4 different tastes to it all in one beer.
As you're drinking it. And it kicks your ass, too.
It does.
Yeah, the best
yes.
ones are complex like that. Something on the front end, something on the back end, something in the middle.
Yep.
So I don't have a beer. I'll probably switch it up at halftime.
Oh, yeah.
But I've been fucking with some of these cocktails, and I'm a whiskey drinker. So I got a highball, and it's a super simple drink. So all it is whiskey of your choice, ginger ale, but we're in Michigan, so Verner's, and then a citrus of your choice. And that's it. So I got this Traverse City Whiskey Company.
Mm-hmm.
They got a real good whiskey, so I use that. Some Verner's. So I made a Michigan highball.
Nice. I haven't tasted it, but from across the room, it looks delicious.
What I really like about them is that I never like cocktails because I don't like the simple syrup. I don't like the sour mix. I don't like anything syrupy. The Verner's is kind of light, and then when it's with the whiskey, it takes some of the extra
Oh, yeah.
bite out of it. So it's a really good, it's a good summer drink.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stepping up. My wife ain't gonna be the only bartender in the house. All right, I'm
There you go.
gonna start making some cocktails.
You fucking Tom Cruise in no time.
Look, I don't cook a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
but I cook like 4 things real well. I'm gonna do that with mixed drinks.
Got 4 fucking signature drinks, man. There's nothing wrong with that.
Shit,
That's a well-rounded individual. You're
Right.
a Renaissance man.
You
But I
know
got-
what they say about the dangerous man, right? Not he who practices 1,000 kicks, but he who practices one kick 1,000 times.
That is
So,
true.
yeah, you do a couple things real well.
Yep.
Yep.
Like Joe Rogan's kick.
Yeah, that
It's like
spinning back
the legendary Joe Rogan kick.
that even GSP went to for
Yeah.
lessons.
That GSP fucking stand on.
Yeah.
He stand about that fucking kick. He's like, his eyes like a little kid. He's like,
Right.
"You're gonna show me the kick? You're gonna show me the kick?" That was a heartwarming moment, bro.
Yeah.
It's like to see a guy that tough, to see a guy that's that good, stand out, mark out over somebody else's move that doesn't even fight, and then you see it and you're like, God damn,
Yeah.
he folded that bag.
Before we get started, we got to make sure we always thank Sixfo Sueno for letting us use his music in the intro. And then today we could thank In Person Cancer because we use this song in the mid-roll, Blood.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
And the great logo.
Yes. So our logo,
you.
you go to his Instagram, Eyes Bleed Defiance on Instagram. He designed our logo. He's got all kinds of graphic art and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mess around a little bit.
Anybody, because Duke brought it up on the podcast, he had a hard time finding your stuff at first because with Cancer, the E is a 3.
Yes,
So if
because the cancer with the E is this little known thing that affects like millions of people.
people aren't a fan,
So it's kind of hard to find if you just name it cancer. So yeah.
and any of those links, Instagram, whatever, if you can't remember them, you can go to the website. So we got the website is badguypodcast.com, and then all the show contributors are listed under the sponsor section. You can hit their social media or whatever from there. So we'll go ahead and get started. And the bad guy we're covering today
Rudy Giuliani.
is John Frederick Hayes.
This ain't negotiation time. This is Scarface. Final scene. Fucking bazookas under each arm. Say hello to my little friend.
A 3-namer. Gotta be good.
It's a very serial killer name.
Uh-oh. I already see.
John Frederick Hayes, a.k.a. Chow Hayes.
Chow Hayes.
Yes, Chow Hayes.
All right.
And even when he didn't go by Chow, he went by Fred.
So he's either a chef or he's Asian.
You ever notice in different generations, like names just fade away? Who do you know young named Frederick?
Young, how young?
21 and under.
Oh, none.
That name died like in our
Yes,
generation.
Rhetoric.
Yeah,
It's like like the Edith or something.
yes.
And it probably got replaced by some people who didn't know how to spell it by rhetoric.
Rhetoric.
So you got somebody named Rhetoric.
So Chow Hayes was born September 7th, 1911 in Paddington, New South Wales, Australia. His father went off to fight with the Light Horse Brigade in World War I when he was 3 years old. So him and his mom went and lived with his grandparents. And not long after that, his grandfather died of the bubonic plague.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay.
Booba. Did he eat a rat? Or did a rat eat him?
I have no idea.
Like, what the fuck?
So the Light Horse Brigade of Australia, they served in Gallipoli. So they had a lot of big campaigns in World War I. But World War I hit Australia real hard. Due to a high casualty rate, there was a generation with few adult males in the house. And many that did make it back were amputees and disabled.
Man. That was in what year?
World War I started in 1914
Oh, okay.
is when it started, and it ended in 1918.
Got it.
After the war, his dad had PTSD issues. At the time, it was referred to as shell shock, and he was sent to various mental health facilities. The one time that Chow Hayes seen his dad after he left for the war, he was institutionalized and in a straitjacket.
Wow. That's one way to deal with issues. You could help them, and you could have great medical stuff, or we just leave them as crazy and put them in a straitjacket.
Yeah, it's come quite a ways since.
I mean,
since then.
so when we try and when we want to complain about mental health nowadays, let's just look at 1918.
Oh yeah.
Like the guy that invented Kellogg's at one point was like, I don't know.
Oh god.
Don't
yeah.
have sex and take a walk, and
Let's shoot some milk up your ass and see if that helps.
he became known as Chow at a young age. He had a slightly Asian look, and in an elementary school fight, a kid called him a dirty Chow. And
So I called that one.
the nickname stuck for the rest of his life.
You know what's funny about that? You remember that was the story of like Napster. He was in school in class one day, and some guy was talking about it. He's like, well, that's why you got nappy hair. And they started calling him Napster, and he literally made Napster based
That's
on
funny. Napster.
Kids just, cruel.
Yep.
Give you any kind of name.
Well, and the nicknames,
Yeah, I've had a few.
the worst nicknames are always the ones that stick.
Yes.
Fat Mexican in downriver. Short, fat, bald Mexican downriver. Yeah, I've had a name or two.
So he stopped showing up for school at 8 years old and started selling newspapers at the Central Railroad Station. By 11 years old, he was running with a gang called the Railway Gang. They would rob new arrivals when they showed up at the train station or shoplift from the local department stores. At 11 years old, Chow Hayes started carrying a razor blade as a weapon.
A Peaky Blinder.
Pretty much. He was often caught for truancy as well as shoplifting and assault, and he spent years in and out of boys' reformatories. At 14, he was sent to Gosford's boys' home, which Hayes later referred to as his criminal university. When I was doing the research, I heard one guy in a documentary refer to it as gladiator school. We see how they do their mental health. They don't do their juvenile delinquents much better.
Put all the criminals together. Some are going to have specialties that other ones don't. So either they kill each other or they teach each other.
Exactly.
It's funny, I was watching a YouTube video. It was a guy that was interviewing another guy, and both of them had done time in prison. And one was on the white collar side, and one was more like, I think he had did a robbery or something like that. And something I never thought about as to the reason why they separate certain criminals. They said it's not because they're afraid of the white collar criminals getting beat up or anything like that. It's literally they don't want to put the brains and the brawn together.
That makes sense.
And I never thought about that
Me
before
neither.
in my life until I
thought it was
watched
for the
that
same
video.
thing. I thought it was because they didn't want him to get beat up.
So when he was released at 17, Chow Hayes had developed a mentality of never backing down to anyone and physically opposing authority on anyone who wouldn't listen. He also bought his first gun, a .38 revolver. By the late 1920s, Australia had a booming criminal underworld. The primary rackets were illegal gambling, prostitution, drug dealing, and sly grogging.
Now, what is that last thing?
Mm-hmm.
The 20s in America were big because of the prohibition, right?
Mhm.
They banned liquor, so we'd have speakeasy.
Mm-hmm.
In Australia, they didn't have prohibition, but they did say you couldn't buy liquor after 6 o'clock. And they were like, fuck that. And sly grog.
Oppressive government.
So sly grogging was speakeasies.
They have amazing nicknames for everything in Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's ridiculous. They're incredible.
Yeah, why would you go with speakeasy when you could call it sly grogging?
Sly grogging.
I do think it's crazy that they were able to generate a whole criminal racket out of not being able to drink past 6. Like, that's still every day.
It's every angle, man. Any angle you can see. Be like, if one person wants to drink past 6, we're going to make that happen.
Yep.
Listen, they probably weren't getting off of work until like 6. You come home, the wife didn't have the drinks ready for you. Now you got to hop on the horse, go back out. This is too much pressure.
And if the horse doesn't start, then what are you going to walk?
Fuck that. I'm going down to the sly grog.
Exactly.
And then the drug dealing was real big because cocaine, and back then it was sold like in liquid form as like an elixir.
Oh, the good old days.
It became illegal in 1925, and you have this whole group of people that are just used to going to get this liquid cocaine whenever they wanted.
I wonder how Wall Street would have been if cocaine was just always legal. You know what I'm saying? Like if cocaine had never been illegal, I just can't imagine what Wall Street would have been like in the 80s.
They would have been way less successful because they'd all just been ooting all day.
Yeah, because they would have had to find something else to do.
The funny thing is, I think they were all doing it all day anyway.
They would. That's what I'm saying. Like, if it was legal, it would be like they might have found something harder. I don't know. Yeah, just drink a Coke.
The Pistol Licensing Act of 1927 added increased prison time for firearm possession, which made way for what's now known as Australian razor gangs. In America, we have guns all over, right?
I have 6 on me right now.
Right. You know, any street kid could pick up a gun, a hot piece, maybe got a couple bodies on it or whatever, but you can find something somewhere.
It's the U.S. You got guns.
Right. This is America. Anybody can get a gun. Get guns for my babies and shit.
Yeah.
But other countries don't have guns like that,
Right.
so they're harder to come by. They came up with the rule because at first a lot of these guys they sent home from World War I, they sent home with their guns. So you had these drunk guys with issues and stuff.
Shell shock.
Yeah.
Okay.
So eventually they said, you know what? No more guns, and they doubled down on the time. So you get a year just for even possessing a gun. So anybody they found you with a gun, that's a year right there. So they became these Australian razor gangs, and then the late 20s is known as the Razor Wars. And
that sounds horrible.
so they would fight in the streets 20 to 30 deep. In these big razor
razors?
fights.
Man, that's brutal.
Well, they would fight to maim, is what it said.
They need to bring that back.
I think the UK
Organize
still
it.
does that. Because they don't have guns. You always hear about stabbings in the UK.
Man.
Yeah. Well, they like to fist fight, right? They go over in the cobbles. They like to bare knuckle a lot.
But any little advantage,
Yeah. In Australia, it became a badge of honor to get a big scar on your face. Every one of these are just mug shots. So you could just Google like the Australian razor gangs and you'll get all these creepy pictures of all these criminals with all cut up faces. And honestly, that was kind of your way to show what a badass gangster you were. I agree that is somebody I wouldn't want to fuck with because I am going nowhere near a 30-on-30 razor fight.
Nah, I'll order it on pay-per-view, but I'm not going to be anywhere near it.
Fuck that. So Chow Hayes was different. He wasn't afraid of prison time. He had been in and out of prison his whole life. So when everybody else went to razors, he still carried firearms.
Bringing a gun to a knife fight.
What he would do was he would collect guns and then he'd stash them. He'd come up with weapon stashes in every different neighborhood. That way he didn't have to carry them around with him. But no matter what neighborhood he was in, he always had a spot he could go to get a gun.
So he's playing Grand Theft Auto. He's the original guy who created Grand Theft Auto.
That's hilarious.
So they need to do
Change
a
of
GTA.
outfits.
GTA.
Red Dead Revolver, Australian edition.
Right.
Another thing that was crazy about him, he was the opposite of reform because anytime he went to prison, when he got out, he immediately felt like he had to do crazy shit right off the bat to reestablish himself, to let everybody know, hey, I'm back in the neighborhood. And
so he didn't get to keep his seniority when he,
right.
when he went
or he's just a
prison?
crazy person that just wanted more every time. Like people were still like, hey, Chow, we get it. You're the only one with the gun. We respect you. Like, no, I got to beat one of you with this.
I had to shoot you in the face.
So he had established a reputation as a fearless, violent career criminal. That was all solidified. One day he was at a party in Paddington when he was younger, and he was in there talking to this lady. And this guy named Frank Green came in, who was older. He was a sly grogger. He was a big guy in the neighborhood. He was also known as a gunman. He carried guns. He was just like the OG, you know what I mean? And he came in, seen Chow talking to this girl, went in, bitched him out, berated him, embarrassed him, and threw him out the party. Chow Hayes left, and he waited outside for 4 hours till Frank Green came out, and he beat him with a metal pipe until he had a fractured skull and head. He ended up in the hospital for 4 months.
Jesus.
And then pretty much retired as a criminal after that.
I mean, did he retire when he started his hospital visit, or was it a decision that took him 4 months? Like, I got to tell you, man, it's been 3 months and 3 weeks, and I'm not doing any better. I think I need to retire.
Listen, the old guy Green, he never watched Donnie Brasco from the Bronx. Whatever that movie was. Donnie Brasco was the movie, right?
No, that's Carlito's Way.
Carlito's Way.
Benny Blanco from the Bronx.
Benny Blanco,
Benny
that's what it is. He never watched it, so he didn't know. Listen, that young, angry guy, don't embarrass him. He'll come back and hurt you.
So now he was Sydney's most feared gangster. He would work as muscle and as a standover man for Sydney criminal Kate Lee before eventually going off on his own.
Standover man, is that like the right hand man, like the right hand muscle, or what is that?
It's another just an Australian term for extortion.
Okay.
So it's standover like
Stand over you till you give me the money.
yeah, literally stand over. Now,
Which means that you've been knocked down already.
he would be a standover man. The rest of that was kind of his go-to gig. And they would talk about it when he's in prison a lot. He would be a standover guy, which then literally meant as you're sitting at your table or something,
Yeah.
he would come stand over you until
You gonna finish those potatoes?
until you gave him what he wanted. In 1932, he married his childhood sweetheart Gladys King, who went by the name Topsy.
Of course you did. What year was this now? In the 20s?
1932.
1932.
That's another one of those
Topsy.
names that you won't hear for the new generation. Like, who's your, oh, his 5-year-old daughter. She's so cute. What's her name? Gladys.
Gladys. Hilda and Gladys. They're gonna grow up to be strippers.
They would end up having 4 kids, 3 boys and 1 girl. The girl was also named Topsy.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
you know. Gladys or Topsy? Because Topsy was a nickname, right?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
We don't know.
All I do know is they said they named her Topsy also. So
Jeez.
in 1938, he murdered a fellow Kate Lee associate named Henry Baker. Basically, he was trying to stand over Chow Hayes. By then, Chow kind of was doing his own thing, but he still had those connections. And this was like a Kate Lee guy.
Can't stand over a standover guy.
Right. Shot him twice and killed him. And he was never prosecuted for the murder.
Wonder why.
Probably told the story and they were like, yeah, He can't. I mean, you're the muscle. He can't be muscle. No, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Probably no witnesses
Case
either.
closed.
Like,
Yeah, most of
killed himself.
most of his stuff was lack of witnesses. Like he was real
Yeah, that's what I
known.
was
He was
about
a
to
scary
say.
guy. I mean, this is still the heyday of don't fucking tell or
I ain't seen nothing.
yeah.
Notice I didn't attempt a horrible Australian accent.
I thought about
And
it
I
earlier.
won't.
I thought about it earlier, and I was like, nah.
You need Duke for that. He's
got the
Yeah,
accents.
he has the accents down.
You get like 7 subscribers in Australia, and then 6 of them are like, "Fuck this guy." Fuck him.
That's what you think
Fuck
Australian.
him.
That's what you think Australians sound like, dude. Throw another ship on the Bobby.
Oh Jesus. Now you're down to half a subscriber.
We were charting in Australia and New
Yeah.
Zealand. During World War II, he started an operation selling cigarettes on the dock to departing U.S. soldiers. So Australia was a big docking spot. So what they would do is they would grow cabbage and dry it and take cigarettes and cut them and re-roll them. Made up primarily of dried cabbage.
Ah man.
Gotta do what you gotta do to
Got a
make
bunch of
buck.
soldiers addicted to cabbage.
Look, they was establishing one of the first really nice duty frees. You know,
Yeah.
where you get stuff cheap before you go across the border.
Reminds you of that kid who bought a bag full of pencil shavings and thought it was weed when he was a kid. With parsley.
Oregano.
Oregano and parsley.
There's no way that they're thinking this has to be dried cabbage. They would have no idea what it was. You know, somewhere on one of those boats there was some dumbass American soldier that was like, I like the Australian cigarettes. I think they're good.
Yeah, they like their blend.
Hey, I
good
know
blend.
somebody back in the day that would take their weed and buy that stuff from High Times that was like the herbs, but it looks like the real stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they would mix it to stretch their weed that they would sell to people.
Oh,
I'm glad I've never been in a position where I've had to cut my weed.
It's like that dream smoke shit.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah. God, that's horrible.
One of his partners in the cigarette business was Eddie Wyman. And they got in a dispute over Eddie's payouts. He basically thought he was lying about what he was actually making to pay out. And as an extortionist, you can't let that fly. Because once one guy gets away with it, everybody wants to get away with it. They had already got into it, and then they said they were going to squash it. But in an interview with Chow Hayes said, well, yeah, we both said it, but I knew he wasn't going to stop, and I wasn't going to stop. And on New Year's Day, 1945, he snuck into the house and shot Eddie 5 times in the back while he was laying in his bed.
That'll do it.
How do you do that back in the 1900s? It's not like they had really good ways where floors wouldn't creak and they had nice plush carpet or anything like. Are you really sleeping that hard?
He's a really heavy sleeper, man.
Ah. He didn't hear me coming.
It was not like it was a musket that he had to load, you know what I'm saying? Like,
So he was arrested and tried for the murder, but was not convicted. And that's a murder that he later admitted to. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a real quick smoke break, refill our drinks, and we'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, my words are concrete and solid as the truncated snare on a drum beat. Solid as the sound of gun claps in the cross streets. We puffin' on the smoke of genocide and we all chief. More solid than Nostradamus' ominous forecast. I'm spitting in all caps, you listening all fast. I'm talking about airstrikes, ranks, mines, missiles, tanks, kids in bandanas and masks, waving pistols and racks. We'll overthrow the government one day. Matter of fact, grab a gun, we'll see you next Sunday. I'm the antithesis of conformity. I can weather the storm, storm like the beach in Normandy. I'ma ring the alarm like my blood is thicker than boat rope, thicker than a brick. Put the game in a chokehold, thicker than the water under refugees' hope floats. I'm thicker than the cake in the Dominicans' coke notes. Yeah, my soul is darker than warfare and heavy as the chassis on a 62 Corvair. Slipping through the cracks, you know the system ain't all fair. I had to steal a 50 just to get me some bus fare. I'm out of here.
All right, and we're back. We got this Jameson, it's Jameson cold brew. which is Jameson Irish whiskey mixed with cold brew coffee. And when I seen it, I had to grab it because it reminded me right away of the triple stout that you make up, like cold brew. So like it's like Jameson was reading your journal and made a fucking little drink. But what'd you guys think?
I gotta say I'm a fan.
Yeah,
big fan.
Yeah, I think they did a great job. The only disappointment I have right now is that Locke did not give me a Han Solo ice cube. So like my ice is very minimal right now. And so I blame him for not giving me the Han Solo ice cube. But other than that, the Jameson is right on point. It literally tastes like they had the perfect mixture of the triple stout.
And even if you didn't like the taste of it, you have to like the smell of it. You can smell the caramel note. Oh man, I don't want to sound like a pretentious dude, but you can smell the caramel notes. I'm gonna say it. I don't give a shit. Caramel notes, caramel notes, caramel notes. I'm not gonna swish it around. I'm not gonna do any of that shit. But you can smell the caramel notes. Okay.
I keep smelling it. I got allergies. I'm just doing. I just think it looks like I know what I'm doing if I do that. But no, I agree. The caramel notes are.
I'm sorry. Like, there's a way to say pretentious shit without being pretentious. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, and by the time you realize that you had it half out, like, you know what? I got.
Yeah. I'm like, it's got caramel notes. I can smell them.
Well, I got one of DC's strawberry blondes too, so it's my first time drinking.
Do you smell the strawberry notes?
Now, this is what's weird. I wonder how it's gonna taste after you just having a Jameson.
Pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's not
It's
bad.
a good combination. I might pour the rest in there.
We're in the Midwest. I believe we call that a Boilermaker.
Yes.
That's what that is.
And speaking of mixing, just a little side tip for everybody. Whenever you're at a brewery, always ask your server what their favorite mix is. You should get some interesting mixes.
Nice.
Yeah, because once I had asked somebody and they said, it's the something Elvis, and it was a Hefeweizen mixed with a peanut butter stout. So you have the banana, you have the peanut butter.
That was a couple fat guys' response.
Dough.
Sounds delicious.
All right, well, we'll get back to it. So we left off Chow Hayes. See, you can tell it's good because I don't remember where we left off. Like, what was he talking about?
Something Australia. Something about shin groggers or goggles or something. Sly goggles.
Guns, knife fights, the usual.
Razor blades.
Well, this is Australia. You got to be more specific.
Yes.
That's most stories.
Crime?
When we left off, Chow Hayes was basically the leading standover man in Sydney, Australia at the time. Although vicious, he had his own personal moral code against involving who he dubbed squareheads.
All right. Another good term.
So that's what he called legitimate people. So anybody that was
squares.
Yeah.
Squareheads.
That excluded squareheads from violent crimes, not from crimes of property. So you could still steal from squareheads. You just
Oh God.
So he was fine with stealing, but he didn't believe in hurting people outside of the business. One night after killing a man on Oxford Street at 4 a.m, he was seen by a newspaper vendor. Nobody's there. He gets in the car and to leave, and the news vendor sees him. So the car stops and comes back, and Chow Hayes gets out and he goes over to the news vendor, and he bought a paper for £20, which is a modern equivalent of about $300. He told him that the tip was for his bad eyesight,
AKA a bribe.
He didn't shoot him.
Yeah,
he didn't shoot him in the eyes
because he was a squarehead.
Yeah.
You saw nothing. Keep the change.
So he was really proud of the fact that his wife Topsy was a squarehead. So he always bragged about it. She was a nurse.
So he's proud that she wasn't involved in any of the stuff that they were doing.
Right.
Okay.
She, for the most part, was a doting wife. And even though he was barely home and he was regularly doing 3 to 6 month stretches, like all the time, she never seemed to have any knowledge of his criminal dealings. Obviously, she had to know he was up to no good. She just wasn't in on the planning
Yeah, I just don't want to
level.
hear the details and shit.
She was never in his criminal dealings until 1951. So in 1951, an upcoming Sydney criminal and former boxer Bobby Lee and his crew was working security at an underground gambling den, and they ended up beating the shit out of a group of Chow's men. I mean, I guess you guys probably heard enough story to know that that's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So Chow doesn't like that. And Bobby Lee basically thought Chow wasn't shit, and he said, like, I'll just take the lead, and we'll just go take him out. Like, I'm sick of his shit. I don't see why everybody's got to kiss his ass. He's not even that big. I guess he was like 5'8" and wiry. When he got older, he looked a little bit fat, but he's never like a big guy or anything. He decides they're going to go take him out. Bobby Lee goes to his house, and he opens fire through a window when he sees him walk by. But it turns out Chow Hayes had already left for the day, and it was his nephew.
Oh.
And his nephew was just walking through the house, and he was killed.
Oh,
This won't turn out well for
Bobby Lee.
yeah,
Bobby Lee.
And not Bobby
Tiger
Lee, the
Belly.
comedian.
No tiger belly.
So Chow's nephew died on the spot, and Chow was furious. Bobby Lee went into hiding. Now, one night, 8 weeks later, Chow and his partner and both of their wives were at a local club / cabaret restaurant, local hangout, and they spot Bobby Lee at a table with about a half dozen of his friends. Chow tells his friends to leave with the women, and Bobby Lee starts talking shit to Chow, and he told him, "What do you think you're gonna do? Shoot me in a club full of people?"
Yes.
So that was exactly what he was thinking he was gonna do.
Is that the crime scene?
Yeah, that's the crime scene. Chow Hayes emptied his gun into him. He hit him in the chest.
Well, how many bullets were in his gun?
I don't know. I heard 5 or 6.
Oh, man. Either one. What's the
So-
sixth one that did it?
Right. So that's why.
First 5 you ate easily.
So I purposely changed it to he emptied his gun because first I had 5 shots and then I found 6 shots.
Oh,
and
no
I'm like,
shit.
And I'm like, I'm just gonna put he emptied his gun.
That's awesome. And then some asshole had to ask how many bullets were in it.
Like, look, I don't know, motherfucker. 5 or 6.
He shot him a few times, and
So what it sounds like is he had a
More than
revolver.
4, less than 10. So somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah.
well, I'm guessing by this picture with the glove, that's old Lee there
Yeah, that's a Bobby Lee
when he was
boxing
still
pit.
alive.
Yeah.
You look at him though; he was a pretty slim guy, pretty wiry.
Yeah.
So
I could see why he
Maybe
was
that's
think he
it.
was. Actually, I haven't seen Chow yet. I don't know why he would think that he was bigger shit than Chow. So
Maybe because he's a boxer.
yeah.
You know.
And you figure he beat the shit out of Chow's gang. So going back to what we were talking about
True.
earlier, the boxer when it comes to hands is very different than the average guy. But the gangster when it comes to guns is very different than the average guy.
Yeah, for sure.
So
What are you
you're
gonna
in my
do? Shoot me in a
territory
club
now.
full of people? Shoot me in front of a club full of people?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, yes.
Yes, as a
that's
matter of
what I was
fact,
thinking.
that's exactly what I was gonna do. Why do you think I had my guys take the ladies and leave?
It's funny you should ask.
As a matter of fact, Bobby.
That was the first hint, Bob. Listen here, Bobo. When I sent everybody out,
You should
that's
have
because I
left.
was gonna do some shit. I thought you knew that already, but okay.
So Chow goes into hiding, but he eventually gets arrested by a famous Australian detective named Ray Gunner Kelly.
Well, I've heard of him.
Have you?
No.
Oh.
Well, he's famous.
Well, he was like a big time cop, but he also turned out to be kind of a corrupt cop. We'll put it this way. After he hunts down Chow when he finds him, there was 80 people in the club. Nobody would testify. Everybody, when they were brought in for interview.
So they were smarter than Bobby.
Yeah, when they all found out it was Chow Hayes, everybody was like, not going to testify. So Ray Kelly, the crooked cop, he actually at one point when nobody would testify, he told Chow Hayes, he said, "You're going to tell all your lies to say you didn't do it, and I'm going to tell all my lies to prove you did do it."
Okay.
That's a pretty honest statement.
That's an
Like,
approach.
listen,
He's like, I'm gonna meet
both
you
of us
halfway.
are gonna lie. Whoever lies the best,
Yeah.
that's who wins. But we both know what we're doing here.
So I get the corrupt thing that you were talking about. Yeah, I can
Right.
see that now.
So he was a cop. I mean, he obviously was good. He caught him, but he's also saying, well, you know what?
So he was the precursor for like every 70s cop or detective that you've seen in every movie in the 70s.
Ray Kelly manufactures a bunch of evidence, and they try to convict him of the crime. But after 2 mistrials, they were unable to get a conviction.
2 mistrials?
Yeah, 2 mistrials.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, so going into the 3rd trial, Ray Kelly goes up
They
to Chow Hayes.
really,
Keep going till we
really,
get this thing right.
Because so that tells you right there that this is the one case where they were like, but we have all this on him.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like this is the one that they really, really had a hard time letting go of.
Yeah, no, we want this one.
Yeah, they're like, with all of these witnesses, all of this shit, all this stuff happened. Like, there's no way that we can't get him.
Yes.
So then they lose it the first time, they get the mistrial. The second time, they're like, okay, there's no way it's gonna happen again. And then it happens again. It's like, man, they had to be so pissed.
Well, because even though they are right,
Right.
he did do it.
Yeah.
They do not have the evidence. So
Man,
it's
that's so crazy.
so that's why you keep getting a mistrial, because he can't prove he didn't do it because he did, but they can't prove that he did because they don't have no evidence.
And he's not comfortable enough to confess yet. He's like, yeah, I did it, guys. Like maybe after the third mistrial, then I'll tell you that I did
I'll
it.
confess eventually.
Eventually,
Not
yeah.
today.
You know me, guys.
So before they go into the third trial, Ray Kelly comes to him and he says, in this trial, I think we're going to have to bring up your wife as an accomplice before the fact. Chow Hayes didn't want his wife implicated in any of the crimes, so that led to him admitting to the murder.
It took him 3 tries to find that angle.
I guess.
Oh, come on, man.
You know,
Like,
it's
really?
Australia. They hadn't been around for a long time like that. You know, they had to get
The
hip
wife?
to American rules. You know, in America,
You
that's
mean
the
go
first
after
thing
the
they do.
wife?
Exactly. America is like, first thing we do is going after everybody close to you.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to roll. Australia's like, no, let's leave her out of this.
We're gonna go
Third
to the
time,
family
all right,
members of the
shit, we got to go
witnesses.
to the real guns.
Yeah, like I mean, you would go to the witnesses, relatives of the witnesses, like this and that, like.
Well, for the record, Chow Hayes thought it was a dirty move too.
But I mean, like for a guy that comes to you, basically telling you he's willing to do whatever it takes to put you away, it takes him to the 3rd try to be like the wife. Yeah,
You know
the
what happened?
wife.
He sent a telegram to America, and they were like, hey, this is what we do here. He got to, this is a great idea.
It was probably,
We didn't even think about
a
that.
clerk.
We never thought
Probably a
about that
clerk
one.
that was like, "Do you ever think of going after the wife?" Oh shit, that's a great
That's a
idea.
good idea.
That's a great idea. Fucking idea. Let's do it.
Come on, man.
See, it only took a little fucking bit of whiskey to get the accent out of you.
I mean, that's crazy, bro.
1954, he was sentenced to hang. But 2 years into his sentence, Australia eliminated the death penalty and took it off the books, and his sentence was commuted to life.
Lucky man.
The rest of his life, even though he didn't get into politics, he did say he supported the Labor Party because that's who had the death penalty taken off the books.
Oh God, man.
So he was like, oh yeah, I'm a supporter. The Labor Party. They're my guys.
They're great.
What's their platform? Oh, I have no idea.
It is insane though to have that many witnesses, and then the way that you get him is like, your wife. I mean, it says a lot about him.
Yeah.
He obviously didn't want his wife bundled up in everything that he had been doing, but
Well,
I mean,
people said that's why they kind of determined that he wasn't a psychopath or even a really sociopath.
okay.
That he just had like
Anger
social
issues?
disorders and,
Oh,
and
okay.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because he for sure loved his wife a lot. You know, he compartmentalized his life. He had a set of morals.
Yeah.
So I don't know, he's pretty much a broken person is what I think he was. You know,
Yeah,
he's broken
that
at a
makes
young
sense.
age, and what are you gonna do?
It makes total sense.
Look, he dropped out of school at 8. What the fuck do you think he was gonna do when he grew up? Start a
Right.
fucking Fortune 500 company and shit?
Exactly. Yes.
No, he
Before
literally
there was a
stands
Fortune
over
500.
people and takes their stuff.
Listen,
That's what he does
Listen.
for a living.
he missed
steals
his
green
calling.
beans.
There was definitely something going on before the evolution of PETA where he could have started kangaroo boxing. The kangaroo boxing league, I'm pretty sure it would have been great. He missed his calling.
He could have killed Bobby Lee with a boxing kangaroo.
Hey,
Then he wouldn't
Sold
even have
paper
had
and
it.
great.
I never
didn't do
did it.
shit.
I never did it.
I didn't do shit.
Never did it.
Did you see the roo? I didn't see the roo. No crime.
So in Australia, life in prison usually meant 20 years. America's harsher prison system than almost anywhere in the world. Everywhere else is pretty much a life sentence. It's like, or just a life sentence means just a long time.
Isn't ours 25 though?
What's that?
Isn't our life sentence 25?
25
Ours
to
is
life.
25
To life. Okay,
Yeah.
so whichever comes first.
It's like 25.
If you make it out of the 25
we don't
years.
think that you're ready to get
25
out.
years, he's still alive, so we gotta keep him in here.
In
until
20,
he's dead.
in 25, we can talk.
Yeah. Okay.
So during the 60s, there's a different breed of criminals being sent to prison. There was a lot of armed robbers and drug dealers that were violent and much younger than Chow, who is now in his 50s. But with his only skill being a standover, he started trying to get in a lot of fights with other prisoners. Basically because all he knew how to do was take stuff from people.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's just an old man in prison. He's out of his time, basically.
Yeah.
You know, he started in the 20s, now it's the 60s.
Okay.
And it's just younger, meaner dudes.
Yeah.
This led to him getting a lot of fights. At one point, he got a piece of his ear bit off. When he went to the doctor said that they could have sewn it back on, but the guy chewed it up too bad.
Poor guy got Holyfielded.
Yeah.
Chopper Reed tells a story about Chow when he was trying to stand over Russell Mad Dog Cox for some of his tobacco. I'll put the link in the show notes. But basically, Chow did what he was used to doing and walked up to this dude and said he wanted some of his tobacco. And he's like, give me some tobacco. And the guy's like, no, get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you better give me some. And this guy was like, why is this fucking old man bugging me?
Don't you know who I am?
That's exactly what Chow said.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Swear to God. Did you read the story? Because, yeah, Chow Hayes
No.
Chow Hayes said, don't you know who I am? and Russell
awesome.
Mad Dog Cox said, don't you know who I am? And Russell Cox said, how about I shove the tobacco up your ass? And Chow Hayes basically ended up telling him, he's like, I'll blow your fucking head off. And Russell Cox said, all right, well, whenever it is you get out of here, come see me. And you can come blow my fucking head off. But while we're here, if you want to try and take my tobacco,
That's
it's
hilarious.
whatever.
I've heard of a lot of things in prison, and I'm not saying this has never happened, but I haven't heard of guys just blowing other guys' heads off.
Yeah.
Unless you overpowered a guard or something, you know.
Hey, just now he's an old man and that's his go-to threat. But
Did
he
you
doesn't
fucking-
realize he's behind prison.
Did you boof a handgun? Like, what did you? Like, how are you gonna blow his head? You're gonna borrow one from one of the guards.
Thanks for listening. Just real quick, want to ask you to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. Go to Apple iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, and leave us a review, and we'll read it on the show. If you have any questions, comments, or a guy that you would recommend we cover, you can email us at sayhellotothabadguypodcast@gmail.com. We also want to thank Sixfo Sueno for letting us use his music in the intro. You can subscribe to him on YouTube, and also a friend of the show, Cancer. He's got an art, photography, and graphic design page at Eyes Bleed Defiance on Instagram. You can see a lot of his work, including our cover art, which he designed. And he also performed the mid-show song, Blood, from his album, Grenades, Pistols, and Rape Whistles. Now back to the show.
Good God, that's great.
All right, we're back from an extra bonus break. And I bragged earlier because I poured Verner's on whiskey and said that I made a cocktail.
Humble brag.
So yeah, the wife showed up and made chocolate martinis. And
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This is pretty damn great.
It's not a
Yeah.
chocolate martini. I don't think that does it justice.
Yeah.
This is like chocolate gold.
Yeah,
This is like, if you take what we just had before, which was that Jameson cold
the
brew,
cold brew.
Yeah.
and then you add chocolate and you add heaven to it, and those layers,
Extra heaven.
that's what this drink is.
Yeah,
I don't know if it has a name, but
This
that's
is
what
fantastic.
it is.
Well, I mean, next time I'm gonna still pour pop on some alcohol and pretend like it's a drink. But
Listen, man, I don't gauge my masculinity on the shape of the glass that I hold, or what's in it, or the color of the shit that's in it. As long as I'm happy,
right,
and as long as I look like a tough ass fucking while I'm drinking it,
right. Well,
this
luckily,
is goddamn great.
this isn't a video show, so they can't see us sipping on these.
They don't see my
martini
pinky
glasses
out?
and shit.
It's definitely
I'm
a
gonna go pick
martini
you up.
glass, but the way I look at it, fucking James Bond drank martinis.
Fuck yeah.
So I'm a badass
They didn't
for
have
this
chocolate in
martini.
them,
But it did have an olive.
though. Shaken,
It
not
did have an
stirred.
olive.
Extra chocolate.
I'll take chocolate over an olive any day.
So we left off. Chow was struggling in prison in the 60s as an older man that nobody wants to fucking bow down to no more. So this is where I'm just gonna be honest.
Okay.
All the information gets fuzzy.
Really?
Date-wise, it'll all check out in the end. These dates could be off, so if you're in
Okay.
Australia, don't get super mad. So I watched a ton of documentaries, read every article available. I watched the documentary that gave me one date, right? And then
Okay.
I listened to an interview that was longer than the documentary with the
Okay.
executive producer of the documentary, and he said different dates.
Okay.
So I just went, I mean, what are you going to do?
How
Right, you're like, what are
how
we doing
big
here?
was the difference though? Was
Well, I think it all adds up at the end.
Okay.
so-
Gotcha.
So that's what I'm just gonna throw. We're gonna do some fuzzy math based on the
All right.
information that's out
Well,
there. And
fuck
shit.
it.
First of all, I love fuzzy math.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So the
It's
legend
the only
has,
math I know.
legend has it. This is my version of the story.
I know woolly math. I'm really bad.
Whenever you hear the words legend has it, in your mind, just put quotation marks and know that whatever's coming after it is fuzzy math.
Yeah, print the legend.
Print the legend. It went something like this. So he goes into prison. He's struggling through the 60s. He gets released from prison in 1967.
Okay.
He goes right back to extorting Sydney criminals. He was soon implicated in the murder of a brothel owner.
He was able to do that. He was able to reintegrate right into the lifestyle that he was already familiar with.
Well, he went for two guys specifically. One
Okay.
owned a gambling den, one owned a brothel.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people weren't doing business like that. So when he
Okay.
went away in the 20s to 50s, that was the big business.
Okay.
His speakeasies, casinos, brothels. Now when he's back out, a lot less people are doing that.
Okay.
More people are doing drugs. Drugs is the big business. You know,
Okay.
we're selling drugs, we're selling guns, we're doing big shit. We're not meeting in places all the time and hanging out.
Right.
and shit.
Yeah.
So I think he just kind of picked on the only couple old school guys that were left. Honestly, at the end, so he liked to drink a lot and he was a compulsive gambler.
Okay.
Till the day he died, he would just walk up to like bookmakers and stuff and be like, "Hey, can I hold 50?"
Jesus.
And they'd just be like, "Hey,
Why, 'cause
Throw-
he was a legend or something?
throw him 50 and shit." Yeah.
Really?
So this is the rule. If
So it was
I
like a
win,
respect
you
thing?
pay me.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it was a respect thing. It was kind of a, I mean, I don't know. You want to get stabbed by an old man?
Exactly. If I win, you pay me. If I lose, let's forget the whole thing ever happened.
Yeah. Hey, you know, it's okay. It's okay.
So he gets out in 67. Yeah, he goes back to what he does. Smaller scale though. There's only a couple people doing that kind of thing.
Okay.
He ends up in 1970. He was sent back to prison for grievous bodily harm after cutting up a man's face with a broken piece of glass in a bar fight.
Which is like code for, man, you really fucked him up, but he didn't die.
It's like Eli Roth shit. Grievous body is harm. You know, like when we're just being mean for no reason.
Yeah.
So he took a piece of glass and he cut him up. Now, some people say that it was because he seen the guy. He took the waitress's money.
Okay.
So he took the barmaid's money. So he broke a bottle.
Defense of her.
Yeah. So he seen the guy steal the money, breaks the bottle, and cuts the guy's face up. He might have just. I mean, who knows? You know?
Yeah.
At some point, he for sure cut the fuck out of the guy's face.
Okay.
With
Turn him into a human jigsaw
At
puzzle.
some
Yeah.
point, he was dismembered.
But that's only weird because now we're in the 60s. He's from the Razor Wars in the 20s, where
Okay.
that's just
That's
what we
true.
did, right? That's how.
Yes.
This is how we fight our wars and
Yes.
shit. Like
Yeah,
I'm gonna cut you across your face real bad. How about that? And you're
Really,
like,
boy,
what the
you're-
fuck, dude?
You're really old school.
He's
huh?
crying. I just gave him a rep on the streets. Why is he crying?
That's crazy.
Consider yourself maimed.
Like, what are you doing? Why didn't you just shoot me, asshole?
When he goes back, he ends up doing another 7 years.
Whatever. Well, so you're 67 now.
He was eventually released in 1977. His wife had
Wow.
year I was born, 1977.
Man, what
Wow.
a span.
Mhm.
Like, seriously, like, the amount of shit that changed and, you know what I'm saying? Like, the innovations and things that he has been a criminal during this entire time is pretty interesting. He was married to a woman that was nicknamed Topsy. That was in the 70s. Like, that's pretty fucking crazy. Late 70s.
Well, it's funny you said that because Topsy died while he was in prison. He didn't get to attend the funeral. And 2 of his 4 children died also.
Wow.
Jesus.
And then Topsy, his daughter, grew distant. All his money was gone from habitual gambling and expensive legal fees. He spent a lot of money staying,
sense.
you know, not getting hung. When he got out, he lived a crime-free life in a flat with his niece. At some point, he decides, like, he could probably sell a story or something.
At least he still had family.
Yeah.
Some sort of family.
Oh, this is the story I was going to tell earlier. So now he's out. You know, it's 77. He would be in his late 60s.
Okay.
So he's an old man, and he's out, and he's being a good guy. And he would still make his nephew drive for him. And he told his nephew one time was go out and gamble. He took him out to, like, the races. His nephew said he would go up to a bunch of the old school guys, so he'd find the old school bookies and walk up to them, just kind of give them, like, a what's up, and they would turn around and tell their fucking guys they're Chow 50. And his nephew said he sat there watching them collect $400 real quick. He'd just go up to all the old school bookies and just be like, hey, what's up? And they'd be like,
Wow.
and they'd be like, hey, Hit him.
Well,
Yeah,
that
that's
didn't work
crazy.
for
Give him
me.
something and shit. Well, at one point, his nephew asked him, he says, if you're betting the money anyways, why don't you bet it back with that bookie so they at least got a chance to win their money back? And Chow said it was unethical to bet your money with a man that you'd already took it from. He eventually decides his story is sellable. He sets up a deal with an author who wrote a book about his life. It's called Chow Hayes Gunman, and it was written by David Hickey. The book does well, and he does the interview circuit, so there's a lot of videos you can watch, Chow Hayes.
So this would be like in the early 80s or mid 80s?
This would be late 80s, early 90s.
Late 80s. Oh, okay, no shit.
Oh wow, we jumped that far. Okay.
Boy, he made a good run of it, huh? That's a
Um,
decent run, man. I'm just getting my Defcon fucking ratings. I'm looking at his run here, and I'm like, okay.
Now, the author of the book admits, he said it was the only book tour he's ever did where nobody wants to talk to the author. So they just went on a book tour, and they found out Chow Hayes would just talk. And he'd be like, yeah. So I shot him. Like, what would you do with your razor? He'd be like, well, I'd cut him. In addition to doing his book tour, he had a famous painting of him done by a guy named Bill Lake, who had been in the Archibald Art exhibition over 20 times. He's like a legend in Australian art.
What's his name?
Bill Lake.
Bill Lake. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking him up.
He's more of a cartoonist.
Like caricatures or?
Well, that's what he would typically do. But
Gotcha.
the Archibald exhibition is like an art, like legit
Yeah,
art
yeah.
and shit. I did a little bit of research on it. Every year they have the Archibald finalists is like the elite of the elite, and then
Okay.
one person wins it. So Bill Lake did a picture of Chow Hayes, and that he submitted to the Archibald in 91-92 that made the Archibald finalist.
Wow.
Mm.
So that added some validity to
Right.
his existence.
Well, because Bill Lake's already a stud in that world of
Right.
doing the art, and one of his best works was
Chow Hayes.
one of Chow Hayes.
Yeah.
So, on his deathbed, Chow Hayes was bitching that David Hickey, that did his book,
Mm-hmm.
had made millions and cheated out of him, and was telling people to tell Dave Hickey to get down there and bring him his money, because if he had to drag himself down there, he was going to kill him.
If I get out of this bed, he's dead, man.
He died the next day.
Exactly.
So he didn't quite make it
No,
happen.
they didn't make it happen.
Yeah.
So he was a prick to the end. So on his last day, he was
Okay.
still standing over the guy that wrote his story.
So he was who he was.
Yeah. He had a story wrote about him, and he thought, hey, this book is about me. I see he was on this bestsellers list.
Okay.
We're rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no.
So he thought it was like a
That's-
point system, like he was in a sitcom or something.
Well,
no,
it's
he just
about
thought
me, so it's
he
my
just
money.
thought I'm doing these interviews and I wrote a
Yeah.
book and I'm just gonna be rich. And the guy's like, well, that's not how books work, and we didn't really make no money. You know, it's like a passion
Yeah, yeah,
project.
yeah.
I mean, you make some money. He just thought he was gonna have millions
It's
coming.
more an opportunity to like branch out and do other things
Right,
with that notoriety.
right. But he thought that was just his payday.
Yeah, he thought that was it.
He just wasn't as big as he thought he was.
Yeah, when you
But he
branch
thought-
out into other things, like you said earlier with like Chopper Reed, like when other people outside of that country know who that person is, then your
Right.
possibilities are a little bit greater.
Plus, a lot of times books themselves don't make money. It's all the ancillary things around books.
Yeah, for sure.
He died of cancer on May 7th, 1993.
Wasn't me.
Cancer with a regular E.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Number
cancer
three.
because this was 2 days after El Cinco de Mayo, so I know cancer had nothing to do.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
That's still
Wasn't me, bro.
hangover time.
Yeah, it wasn't me, man.
So he confessed to 5 murders, but researchers think that the number was double. His police record was 6 pages long.
Wow.
When it was done, they spent over 30 years in prison.
That's crazy.
But when it's like
Yeah.
spaced out like that, it's completely different. That's very interesting because like if you did 30 years like straight,
Mhm.
that's one thing. But when it's chopped up into little pieces like that, it's like little segments of each decade of your life or whatever, like different whatever area you're in your life. That's a little more interesting.
It's like a fish out of water story
Mhm.
because he's always going
Every
away
time.
and then coming back out.
Yeah, and every time it's a different decade, it's a completely different lifestyle. It's different crime, different things, and that like to be able to go in, come out, and then reintegrate yourself into whatever's going on, and do the same like repeatedly is just it's interesting to say the least.
All right, that's the story of Chow Hayes.
So say good night to the bad guy. Go on. The last time you're gonna see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you.
All right, so you haven't seen a picture yet, but say we're
No.
gonna cast a movie about Chow Hayes.
Okay.
From what you have so far, before I show you a picture, who would you cast to play him?
I'll go first. So, other than hearing he was about 5'8" and slim, there was really no depiction of him. If I gauged off of the boxer that he killed, if I gauged saying that in that area at that time they looked a little bit more like Lee, I could easily see a Ed Norton type of person playing that character, just gauging that he was of similar look features to Lee. But I don't know that to be true.
I feel like Ed Norton loves that role to get to pretend like he's Australian and do like a
Oh,
fucking throw
yeah.
himself into some.
An Australian that people think is Asian. He's like, I can do it.
I can do it.
I can do it.
Man.
I can do it. I got it. I got it. He played a disabled safecracker for like fucking 99% of the movie. The score
ever.
That's pretty damn great.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, I can do it. I got it.
I'll do it.
So my pick would be, since they thought he looked Asian, but I don't know what their idea of an Asian at that time was. And even though he is actually Asian, my guess would be, even though he's dead, would be Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee would be my choice.
Yeah.
Obviously with a period specific haircut.
Yeah.
But that's the only person I can really think of.
But see, I like that. I like that answer because Brandon Lee, one, he almost never comes up. Two, as we know, his career was cut very short due to tragedy on the scene.
Right.
But then, three, he looks more white than Asian.
Yeah.
And his father, of course, is the legendary Bruce Lee, but his mother was actually white. And so he has that nice blend. But a lot of times people's idea of an Asian isn't an Asian.
Right.
It's a Caucasian version of an Asian.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I
Asia's
mean?
a
So,
giant continent.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So
yeah.
I think
Half of
I think it's
Russians
a
are
good
Asian.
point.
Different
Yeah.
regions,
Indians
people look
are
differently.
Asian.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is
So this is Chow
Billy
Hayes when he was young.
Drago.
I wouldn't even pick.
Google Billy
I
Drago,
wouldn't
please.
pick an Asian dude or a white dude to play him. I would pick. I do not know this guy's name, but he plays often black and Latino in movies, depending
Okay.
on the movie. He looks just like that guy. He played in it wasn't Fresh.
So this is Billy Drago.
Shit, I can see that.
Oh,
Let me find
that
this
looks
guy.
like
I gotta
that
think
looks
of
like that
this
picture
guy.
of him.
Yeah, that's the first. Yeah, that's Billy Drago for sure.
Look up. I'm gonna butcher this guy's name. I'm gonna spell it, especially after these drinks. Gia.
Giancarlo
Esposito.
Esposito.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, that guy.
Google
Look
knew it
him up.
quick.
And this
Oh,
is the
that's
guy
Yeah,
He
Giancarlo
often plays-
Esposito.
said he
Esposito's
jumps
incredible.
between playing a black guy and a all different
little bit
types
of all
of
the-
Latino
I just-
guys. Yeah. If you look at this
Gus.
guy, the way that he looks, like features wise, I literally can see this guy playing him.
Yeah,
You look it up and tell me what
Realistically, Giancarlo can
No, I
play
got-
anything.
Well, this is him as an old man.
Okay, so he
Mm.
grew into older Billy Drago.
you think.
And then this is the pitcher, the Archibald finalist for 91, 92.
Yeah, I want to see this. Okay, so it's funny how you can take somebody who has done so much horrible shit in their life and just make them look like just your average, ordinary older man.
The
Smoking.
eyes always give it away, though. If you look at the eyes,
Yeah,
on
there's
this,
a lot
or even
there.
if you go back to the other picture, I'm a firm believer. I forget the exact quote, but it's something like, "The eyes are the gateway to the soul."
Mhm.
You really can see the difference in people's eyes, and it tells a little bit of a different story.
For sure.
Especially when somebody has a deep history, and you can see, like, I don't know if the right word is troubled or a story.
Experience.
Yeah, a story past
Things are there.
in his eyes, where even at that age, you know, how, going back to the story of like him in prison or whatever, and it's like
Yeah.
he's telling the guy, "Listen, come up off of that or whatever." When he looks at you, he believes 100% of what he's saying.
Right.
And you see that in his eyes.
And that carries a lot
The
of weight.
only difference is what you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
He believes what he's saying, period.
And that gauges the reaction that people give when
Exactly.
he says that shit. Yeah.
And so
you're right.
for your average person that's going to come through there that's not sure in themselves, they're going to fold to that.
But then you get Russell Cox, who
Yes.
says,
Can you go back to the other picture before this?
Who says,
I could
I
try.
see what's in your eyes, but you don't know that I am a savage myself.
right.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Those eyes,
That
it's
real
something
recognize
different.
real shit?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so now we got to do the Defcon scale. So standard Defcon scale is 5 to 1, 5 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. But on the Bad Guy podcast, nobody's a good guy. So 5 is Lee Murray, who's your crack dealing, kidnapping, bank robber. And 1 would be the Purple Gang, who's got multiple massacres, multiple gang wars, and they're killing people on the street. So on a scale of Lee Murray to the Purple Gang, where would you rate Chow Hayes?
So at least the first body or two that he's claimed or it's been put on him, I would say those are kind of justifiable based on our Defcon scale. I always feel like if something's in the middle of whatever combat is, that's just collateral damage, as you mentioned earlier. It's really when it goes outside of that to where it's an issue for me, because everybody's bad guys. That's just what it is. If we look at the 5 that he's confessed to, we take 3 away, and there's not a whole lot of data on the other 3. I can't put him at a 1 or a 2, and I can't put him at like a 5 because he has at least 5 bodies
he
that
is
he
killing
confessed to.
motherfuckers.
Yeah. So it's like I have to put him around a solid 3. You know, and it's really just because he has bodies, at least 5 that we know of, maybe more. He seemed to only confess to what he's at least been on trial for, but my guess is he has more bodies than what he's been tried for.
I would assume every gangster does. They all have a secret or two.
Yes. So from that, I'm going to put him in a solid 3. I think at more information, he may have been a little bit higher, so to speak, on a scale, but just based on information, I'm going to put him right in the middle at a 3.
Yeah, it's really difficult because when you get into guys like this that have their little moral compasses, they have their years and years, decades of longevity. I mean, it when you strip away all the shit that they did, it's kind of hard not to look at it as like a career and look at it as like, you know, your years of relevancy, the years of respect that you commanded, this and that. Plus, you know, not living in that area, I don't know how he's spoken about. So, you know, there may be people that be like, oh, you know about Chow, like Chow was like, you know, this, he was like this, you know, how they look upon him. So, I mean, I have to agree. It's hard to go past a 3 into 2, but at the same time, like, man, it's a long time that he was around doing shit and able to command any type of respect to the point where when he was older, people would still kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, even though he wasn't really in the game anymore, which kind of leads me to believe that he was revered by criminals in a way that a lot of people aren't.
It's almost kind of like in Chicago, Tony Accardo, where a lot of the guys we talk about, it's a small period of time. So
Yeah.
they kill a bunch of guys in 2 or 3 years and they get in trouble and they bust.
Yeah.
You know, you get a Tony Accardo, you get a Chow Hayes. They do it for decades.
Right.
So yeah, there's this violence, but if you do it per capita, where you spread it out over an average of 7, you know,
Per capita.
right? I'm just saying, he started at 8. You know, he died at
Right.
fucking in the 90s and shit. I mean, what are we talking about? A body a decade?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you stretch it out a little bit. When you compress that, it looks worse. He died in the 90s.
You know,
That's crazy.
And I always look at it like, how many different movies can you make out of one lifetime? Because you got guys that have only killed once, but the story is so crazy that it's like, man, somebody couldn't wait to see a movie about that. Then you got guys that have killed like 20 people, and you're like, you know, there's nothing there story wise. Only strictly looking at it in story wise. Then you take somebody that has like that many years and be like, you know, how many stories can you pull from that career?
All right, so we can we call him a unanimous DEFCON 3.
I think so, yeah.
Zach, this is Crystal Palace. Sync Radars declare DEFCON 3. Scramble all alert aircraft. I repeat, scramble all alert aircraft.
All right, so we got to do some listener feedback. First, we got a review. We got a Facebook now, so you can go follow us at Say Hello to the Bad Guy Podcast on Facebook. So we got our first Facebook review. It's from
shit.
So it's from Justin Wallace.
Yeah.
From where?
Doesn't say.
Oh shit.
Just one.
Anonymous.
Well, on my piece of paper. I'm brick and mortar, dude. I had to print this out. I got all these screens in front of me. I still print this piece of paper
On
on
dot
these
matrix
glasses
printer.
and shit.
Just for in case anybody doesn't know, Locke literally has 2 computers and 2 extra monitors in front of him, and he still prints everything out. I just want the people to know this because there's a lot of technology here. There's like switchboards and dial things and all stuff he does, but he has his series of pieces of paper.
There are
Well,
3
that's for real
parakeets. There are 3 parakeets in a cage that have ink on their little claws, and he shocks them with electric, with an electric shock, and then they print whatever he tells them.
Morse
Here
code.
comes the PETA.
Morse code.
Here
There you
comes
go.
PETA.
So our first review
Pita
from
bread? I'm gonna put the birds in pita bread.
So our first review from Justin Wallace says 5 stars, 2 thumbs up, and 1 dick out for Harambe. The show is too funny. I was told about the show from a friend, and I can't express how much I love hearing about the underworld from y'all. Much love. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Keep your dick in your pants, but thank you very much.
Yeah, please.
That's awesome.
This is 2020, man.
Well, let's not be restrictive. I'm saying please. You know, you should keep your dick in your pants.
Well,
Well, it depends on where you're at. Yeah. And if you're at Bogart's,
Let's not be
I'm
stupid.
sorry, I didn't say that out loud. If you're at beep, then you know.
We got another international review. So we got our first review from Italy, from A Roberts89.
That's awesome.
Says, I love this podcast. Funny, entertaining, and informative. Who said history is boring?
That's actually really fucking cool.
I love the fact that we have somebody in Italy. And first of all, I've never visited these places, but family members that have visited and somehow smuggled wine back for me. The 2 places that have had the best wine by far, tastes nothing like American wine.
Huh.
It's Italy and Spain. I don't know what they do to their wine, but it tastes nothing like American wine.
What's their feet?
And it's fucking delicious.
Their
If
feet are
that's-
different.
Listen, whatever it is.
American
if it's
feet are
beef-
Different
disgusting.
feet. Yeah,
if
American
it's
feet are
feet,
sick.
Those are the best tasting toes ever.
Have you ever sucked an Italian girl's toe? I mean, it's
No.
it's a completely different
I'll
experience.
have to try it now.
I think this is about as off the rails as we can get. So we'll wrap this up.
Most of it was off mic, though.
Yeah.
Most of the off rails was
Yeah.
off mic.
I've
I
been
ran it in.
drinking,
think
so
we're
I don't
okay.
know what was off mic and what was on mic. So just forgive me for anything I said.
All right, well, this is Say Hello to the Bad Guy. Thanks for coming, and thanks for listening.
Drink up.